Hi, my name is Emily. One thing I learned about being male to female transgender is that I like to coordinate my clothes. I like to try to wear a matching dress to matching hair bow. I like to wear matching chemise to a matching dress. I like to experiment with hats and try to match the hat with the dress. And that's how I feel. I'm not by any means a fashion expert, but I always enjoyed matching as best I could an ensemble of clothing. This is when I started living as a woman. As a guy, I could care less. I didn't match anything. But as a woman, it's a whole different ball game, because I'm self-conscious and I want to look as good as I can. I don't consider myself a vain person. I just want to look good and present so I can go out and feel confident in the public eye. I used to always be self-conscious. When I was a guy, it was not easy for me because I didn't take pride in the clothes I wore. I didn't have any sense of excitement looking for clothes. Like, I could care less about a shirt, a tie. Though with ties I had a little fun because you could play with the colors and the styles. But of all of the things that I wore as a guy, basically was the same. Trousers, shirts, ties, jeans. That's basically it. But for a woman, you get to wear dresses, you get to wear skirts, you get to wear nice trouser and tops, you get to wear pretty shoes, you get to put on makeup, you get to color coordinate, you get to play with your hair and style it, whatever color, whatever shape. You get to print all different design. You get to elect all different dresses with different colors, different designs, and it's fun. When I shop in the women's department, I can spend hours at a time. And when I was a guy, it's kind of ironic because when I was a guy, I would be extremely shy, and I managed to go into women's sections, look for intimate lingerie, look for pretty dresses. And I used to play a trick where I would have like a man's shirt, man's pants, and then underneath it I would have a couple of dresses. So I would go into the dressing room because I wasn't yet presenting as a woman, and I would have all the women's clothes underneath the men's, so it was concealed. And then when I got in the dressing room, I just put the men's clothes aside because I didn't want to try them on. I just used that to hide the women's clothes. And then I would try on the dresses, and I felt very good. I didn't have a lot of money, so I couldn't buy the dresses unless I was lucky enough to save to buy at least one dress. But when I was younger, I just appreciated seeing myself in a dress, and I didn't have to cover up because in public, that's what I had to always do. I had to wear a dress underneath a man's suit. So that was my way of seeing myself. And I didn't have a camera back then. iPhones weren't even in existence back then. So basically, if I did have a camera of any kind, it would be one of those tiny cameras, and then you would take a picture. I remember I had a little red camera, and I would take pictures. It was a good camera. and I enjoyed using it, and you can make little videos. So that was my first taste of taking pictures. But, I don't even remember if I had even used Facebook back then. I don't even think it existed. So any pictures I took, I would have to get it developed at the Photoshop, and I was very embarrassed at times because the Photoshop guy knew me, knew our family, and here I am taking pictures in women's bathing suits, wearing dresses, and other things, and I didn't know what he thought, because when you develop the film, you get to see the final picture. So I was always feeling a little nervous, but he never said anything. So I just kept taking those pictures and bringing it there to be developed. And that's basically what I did as a younger kid in my teens, like 13, 14, 15, 16. And as I got older, it became more exciting for me to start going into the women's department, because now I had money. And if I liked the dress and it was reasonable and within my budget, I would buy it. I'd get so excited. I felt like I accomplished this big thing, because here I am, a very shy guy, yet I can go into the women's department. I could buy bras, I could buy panties, blouses, trousers, dresses, and it didn't faze me, I didn't even have to pretend like I was buying it for my girlfriend. On occasion, the woman cash register, the woman working at the cash register would say, "Oh, your girlfriend's gonna be so happy when you give her these nice presents." And she asked me if I wanted to get a receipt in case it doesn't fit. So I played along with her and I said, "Okay, that's a good idea. But those dresses were for me, but I'm not going to tell her, First of all, as much as I felt comfortable buying the clothes, I was not able to say, "Oh no, these are my clothes." I couldn't do that. So it was kind of weird, because I wasn't shy buying the clothes, but I was shy to admit that they were for me. But as I outgrew that and as I started developing my feminine features, well, that was a long time from then. But I would wear a wig when I first tried to go out. I'd wear a dress. And I was traumatized somewhat because I was afraid people could find out and they would laugh at me. And I remember one instance where I went to Roosevelt Field and I had a dress on, I had a wig on, and I swear it seems like teenage girls can spot you a mile away. And when they saw me walking past them, they were laughing and giggling. I knew that they were laughing at me. So that made me very scared to go out in public. Set me back a little bit, so I didn't do it anymore. Took me a long time to get the courage to go out. And I remember where I had to hang out in my car, waiting in the parking lot until I mustered the nerve to go out with feminine clothing. And back then, really the only clothes that I could feel comfortable in was like a woman's blouse and women's jeans, and that was the extent. I didn't go out in dresses anymore because I wasn't comfortable, even though I love dresses and I love wearing them. So I would go out in a blouse and women's jeans, feminine jeans, and I never got like stares. They just saw, "Oh, this guy wears women's jeans," or maybe they didn't even care. But it was, that was my foray into going out cross-dressed. And I knew it was deeper than cross-dressing. I knew that I was actually a female, but this was the only way I could express it, where I didn't have to hide it. But I got tired of wearing jeans, you know, and that's when I really wanted to go out and wear dresses. So I remember the first time I went out in a dress, aside from that time I was at Roosevelt Field and I felt those girls were laughing at me, I went and I briefly walked around one store to the other, Macy's, JCPenney, when that was in the Sunrise Mall, and now it's gone and Sears is gone, but those were the stores that I would buy my clothes. And for 15 minutes or so, I would walk around, I had a wig, I would wear my dress, you know, and girls' shoes, and I just felt happy. I wasn't yet ready to start going into the women's bathroom, so what I would do was I'd have a bag with me, an empty bag, and what I would do is I would go into the, I wanted to go into the women's bathroom, but I couldn't at the time because I was nervous. So I would go out into my car, I would take the dress off, and I would put on men's clothes. Then I would go and use the bathroom, and that was it. And then I didn't feel like putting them back on, so then I would just drive home. So it was kind of a difficult time for me. I didn't feel comfortable yet, and it took me a long time. I actually never transitioned until I was in my early 50s, so you're talking about a long time. Excuse me. But when I turned 51, that's when I came out, and I didn't care what people thought of me. I just came out. I still had to wear a wig because my hair was still short, and I wore my dresses, and I couldn't care less what people would think. And I even used the women's bathroom. You know, I just go and use it, and then I go out. You know, I'm not trying to scare anybody, and you know, and then I wash my hands, and then I would get out. You know, and now that I'm living as a woman now for 7 years, now when I go into the women's bathroom, I can even strike conversations with the women. I am not intimidated, I'm not afraid. You know, I'm just trying to be friendly, and they just think I'm like one of the girls. So I think that's pretty cool. And, you know, it's not easy. It's taken its toll on my family, my son, and I feel very guilty about it. But I've struggled like this for a whole lifetime, and I can't undo what I knew I was from a very young age. You know, I had to live with it. And there were times when I stopped dressing up, you know, during milestones in my life, like when Matthew was born, when I got married to my wife, you know, and then I just put my clothes away or I purged them. But after a while, I just couldn't do that anymore. And then when I came out, that was it. It was all or nothing. So I came out and I started dressing as a woman. You know, I had a job for a little bit until I got discriminated against and lost the job. And then I started developing all of these psychological problems. I wound up in hospitals, 5 to be exact, Bellevue, Mount Sinai, Nassau University Medical Center, South Oaks, and Stony Brook. So I suffer from depression also, bipolar disorder, suicide ideation, and I'm transgender, you know. But I'm in psychiatric care. I go to a therapist. I'm planning to do surgery finally in September. September 10th is the target date, and I want to go through it at this time because I've had 5 postponements for various reasons, and I can't do another postponement because if I do, then I feel it's never going to happen. It's either do it or don't. So this is crucial, and I realize that it's going to take time to recover, and I have other things that I'm worried about. I need to drive. You know, I'm in big trouble if I'm unable to get a car and drive again. I need to make sure I have insurance and it's not going to skyrocket. So that's leading to my depression too. So I need to get situated before I have the surgery, because you're talking about September 10th and we're already in August, so you're talking about a month away, you know, and I have to be prepared psychologically, and I'm also going to have to deal with the aftermath of the surgery, with the pain and stuff, you know. So every transgender woman I spoke to seemed to be able to tolerate the pain, and they were pleased with the results. And some of my transgender women friends are engaging in sex with men. My reason for doing surgery has nothing to do with that. My reason would be to feel comfortable with my body and my mind, and it would be the best way to deal with my gender dysphoria. I don't have much support other than from some transgender friends. My wife is come around, but you know, she's not too thrilled. My son calls me Emily, but sometimes he's upset and he misses his father. And that was one of the reasons I tried to detransition, but it couldn't work for me because I was devastated. And when I realized I cut my hair short like a boy's haircut, and now I had to wear men's clothes because they didn't look right in a dress, didn't match. And when I had long hair, I looked very much like a woman. And now my hair is growing now, and my hairstylist said it will grow back, and I'm, you know, feeling good. But it's still going to take a while to get my hair down to the shoulders like it was. But at least I have the hair grown and I'm addressed as a female now. The hardest part when I detransitioned was when I went out, they would refer to me as Sir or Mr. And it was like a dagger to my heart, just like my son's saying he misses his dad. It's like a dagger to my heart. And I would never hurt my son or anybody for that matter. I'm just trying to find my happiness. It took tragedies to get me to start my transition, you know, because I tried to do transition from male to female in my 20s, my 30s, my 40s, and to no avail, no successful transitions. And then when I hit 50, that's when I hit the crisis point, and I felt I had no other choice but to transition. And that's when I came out on Facebook. Unfortunately, the world, for me at least, wasn't ready for that. They always envisioned me as a guy, even though I was short stature, because I presented a male image. I was not flamboyant. You know, I didn't come across as gay or transgender. I just was treated as a guy who was pretty shy. And nobody questioned me, you know. And, but when I did come out on Facebook and then told my employer and told my sisters, that was the hardest part. and then my college friend, because they really didn't want to know about it, and it went nowhere. I was in my 30s. I wrote letters at Christmas time, and I put it in Christmas cards, and they read it, but nobody said anything. So my hopes were dashed, and it turned out to be nothing. Nobody talked about it, so I didn't talk about it. It was like it was totally ignored, and that was kind of upsetting to me. And then when I hit my 50s, that's when I had to transition, because I had lost my dad tragically. 2 years later, I lost one of my best friends who I used to go to. I was the CPA, he was the client and bookkeeper. Not only did we have a professional relationship, but we also became friends. And I wonder sometimes if I told him how he would react, and I truly believe that he would accept me. But we never had that chance because he died. And he was the first one to help me cope with my father's suicide. So I miss him. I miss my dad, I miss my mom, and I miss my friend. And then after those two horrible events in my life, I started to realize if I'm going to do something in my life before I die, I'm going to seek my happiness. And my happiness was accepting myself as a transgender woman. And that's what I aim to do. So I came out in Facebook. I told my sisters, I told my friend, I told coworkers, not coworkers, I told the employers, and obviously it wasn't taken well, so I had to change jobs, and then I took that job at a pediatrician's office who was expanding, had multiple locations, but they didn't treat me right. They didn't treat me like a professional. I didn't have phone contact. I was never participating in business meetings. So I could read the handwriting on the wall that the owner didn't respect me, even though the practice manager said, "Oh, you're going to be accepted fully. We embrace you for who you are." And I realized it was all a lie, because after 7 months, for no reason other than filing a census a month early, when she said, "I gave this to you a month ago, and I thought you'd be done," and I was busy doing other things and learning the ropes, and she blamed me, but I said, "But it's got a month due," and she said, "I don't care, I was given this a few weeks back, and when I give you something, I want you to complete it as quickly as possible." And I tried to defend myself, which I have every right to do, and she made a whole big deal about it, even though it was due a month from then. So as soon as she said, "You better think about this, and I don't want you here for the rest of the day. You go home and you think about it." And I had a bad night. I was so upset. My son was having a meltdown. I didn't get much sleep. And then when I came back, after she had warned me that I would only have 2 weeks left, and she paid me for a full month, then I wound up in the hospital. I had fainted in the office in her cubicle area, so they rushed me to the hospital, Bellevue, and that's when my whole life unraveled. And I don't blame it on my transition. I blame it on people who are ignorant and don't understand what it's like to be transgender. And all I can say is I hope one day that transgender people will be given their respect they deserve and the dignity. But unfortunately, given the climate in Washington, D.C., right now, transgender people are being discriminated against. There's hate crimes against transgender people. Transgender women, mostly black, are being murdered, and it's just horrible. And we have leaders in Washington who seem to believe that transgender people are evil, that they don't deserve to live, that we should be discriminated against if companies have religious policies that don't want transgender people to be part of the organization. And then when Trump was running, he said, I'm going to be the president and I'm going to support LGBT people. And then what does he do in office? He bans transgender soldiers from the military, and he has the audacity to say that transgender people can still serve if they revert back to their normal sex and not wear women's clothes if they're male to female. And that's ludicrous. And that was the only way that they could serve. And I think that's ignorance, transphobia, and outright discrimination. And that's the climate, unfortunately, in Washington. And I wish I could do something about it, but I'm only one person. But if you get enough one person and you expand, that one person will become 10 people, then 20 people, then 50 people, then 100 people, then thousands of people, just like the women's marches. And that's what we have to do. We have to fight for our rights as human beings. We're no different. And we cannot be ostracized because we identify different from our birth sex. There is no such thing as perfection. There is no such thing as saying that every boy born must grow up to be a man and every girl born must grow up to become a woman. You tell me, in a perfect world, if that is possible. In a perfect world, in a perfect world that may exist, but we don't live in a perfect world. There are many imperfections, so you cannot dictate that every boy will become a man, because that's simply not true. Transgender has been around for a long, long time, and nobody has the right to tell us how we should live our lives. After all, we don't tell other people how to live their lives. So we need to fight back. And we need to vote people into office who will treat us with dignity and respect. And it's certainly not Trump or the Republican Party. We need to vote Democrat. We need to have people who know us in ways where they can empathize and work with us like Obama did. And Obama set into motion that transgender people could serve in the military. And what does Trump do? He does a tweet that says no more transgender people to serve in the military because we're not going to lay out the money for them to have sex change operations. He is so ignorant and so hateful that I can't wait for him to leave office, and I hope it's soon, because I don't want to deal with the prospects that he's going to serve another term. That is the ultimate nightmare, and we have to put an end to Donald Trump. I am talking politics, which I hate, but I have a strong opinion, and I despise Trump. I do not respect him. I don't care if he's our president. He's evil. He's a white supremacist. He doesn't respect women. He doesn't respect the disabled. In fact, he wants to take away Social Security. He wants to take away disability benefits. He wants to take away Medicare. And he wants to take away Medicaid. And he wants to destroy the health system that Obama had put in force. And he has no backup plan. He is one of the most incompetent presidents we've ever had. And I don't care if he's a supposed billionaire. He doesn't know how to run the country. He's childish. He has to chew out people if they don't agree with him, criticizing them through tweets, not facing them face to face. He is nothing more than a coward, and the Republican Party has no backbone, and they side with Trump because they're so damn afraid they're going to lose their job, and they're afraid that they're going to offend Trump, so they stick by his side, and I think that's awful. I think they're cowards, and I think if this was Obama doing this, they would be in an uproar. But they can get away with it. But they don't want the Democrats to ever do anything like this because they would see that they would be fired. You know, they even fired Al Franken, putting pressure on him because of some indiscretions. Yet Trump has many indiscretions, and he's able to still continue to serve as president. Where's the justice in that? I'm sorry I went off with the political conversation, but it really makes me upset. And I can't see myself living here in the United States if he's going to be reelected. Like I said before, I'll try every way I can to get all the necessary documentation so I can move out of here to ideally Canada and or Ireland, because I have connections where I can become a citizen through my mother's parents who had grown up and lived in Ireland before they came to the United States. So that's it. I don't want to talk about this guy anymore because it only makes my blood boil. I want to talk about happy things, and I will. No more Trump. I just want to push him out of office in any way I can. But I'm only one person, so my vote will count, hopefully, because I'm going to cast it for one of the Democrats. So that's all, because I'm so tired of this, and I'm upset, but I'll leave you with this. I am Emily Iannelli. I was born Edward Iannelli, Edward Donald Iannelli III. I do not feel any shame in admitting to that, but I call myself now Emily Denise Iannelli. I respect the name my parents gave me at birth. That's why I haven't changed my name legally. But I do dress as a woman because I'm more comfortable, and I'm transgender, and I'm not gonna stop dressing this way, and I don't care how many people think I'm crazy or how many people say that I should be ashamed of myself. I don't care because I know who I am, and I will live my life the way I feel most comfortable, and nobody is going to dictate to me. I've been fortunate to be accepted by most people. I've been fortunate not to be bullied. I mean, when I was first transitioning, I did go to Kmart, and there was a guy on the line ahead of me, and I said, "The woman is calling next, so you're next." And he turns around and he looks at me and he says, "You're not a woman, you're a guy." And then he pushed me to the ground. And I didn't have the nerve to look for a cop to say that this happened to me. And I call it a hate crime. But there was nothing I could do because he ran off. I was saddened by it. I was shocked by it. And there were other people working the registers who saw it, and they said that was not right. But what could I do? I didn't get a name. I couldn't really identify him. And by the time I would tell a police officer, he would be way off, and I would not be able to identify where he went. I didn't really get a good handle on what he looked like. All I could say was he was mean, and when he discovered that I was not a woman because of my voice or whatever, even though I was wearing a dress, he just punched me, pushed me to the ground, and I was in shock because that never happened to me before. So now that I've been transitioning now for 7 years, taking hormones, I pass as a woman, and despite the fact that my voice doesn't actually sound like a woman's voice, I'm able to get by. The only time I'm misgendered is on the telephone call, and I'm working on that. And if they do misgender me, I say politely that I'm male to female transgender, and I prefer to be addressed as Emily. But it's not legal, so any paperwork still has to be in my birth name, Edward D. Iannelli III, D standing for Donald. But informally, I prefer to be addressed as Emily, Denise Iannelli, but simply Emily. And people seem to be kind and understanding and accepting. So that's all I can do. So I think I will wrap this up for now. Thank you. So long.